Good afternoon and welcome inside the Bear Zone for the first time in 2013. I'm Ben Warwick alongside our brand new co-anchor, Rachel Turnock. Tonight we've got a recap of everything you missed over break and what's happened so far this semester.
We've also got an update on the wrestling team. We welcome Michael Nowels back into the studio, and we get to know a Bear who's making quite a name for himself.
Before we get started tonight, we have a little breaking volleyball news. After an appearance in the NCAA tournament, two members of the volleyball team have left the program. Sophomore outside hitter Tamber Haddock and freshman setter Allie Hutchison are no longer with the team. Haddock is now a student at Brigham Young University and is part of the Cougars team. In an interview with The Mirror, Haddock says she left UNC to be closer to her family, but did not intend on playing volleyball originally. The reason for Hutchison's departure is still unknown. In a statement, head coach Lindsay Oates says, Allie and Tamber left the team for personal reasons, and we wish them success in their future. We wish them success in their future endeavors. Well, we'll continue to keep you updated as soon as we know more. Rachel?
The UNC men's basketball team was probably hoping for a smoother winter break. The team managed just 2 wins while we were all home for the holidays. Those 2 wins came against Tabor College and North Dakota, both at the very beginning of break. The Bears wrapped up 2012 with a nail-biting loss to new conference rival Southern Utah and couldn't open up 2013, having to pay Scott Bamford a visit in Ogden. The Bears dropped that game 79-54. They traveled up I-15 where they dropped a tough game they should have won against Idaho State 86-63. The Bengals hit 15 three-pointers that game. The team returned home to play the host, the Montana, both U of M and Montana State, and dropped both games.
On the women's side, the team found a bit more success. They started off hot and kept up the momentum. They started off the winter hiatus with a tough loss at Texas Tech, 68-41. They came home to face North Dakota to start off Big Sky play and showed them they meant business, dropping the team formerly known as the Fighting Sioux, 53-41. The big game came the night before New Year's Eve. The Bears briefly stepped out of conference play to face Johnson & Wales, yes, the cooking school, and the Bears really chopped them up. The final in that one was 102-33. Yeah, they beat them by 69 points. The Bears would lose only 2 more games over break to Montana and Montana State. Right now, they stand at 8-3 in the Big Sky and in second place overall.
The men's basketball team started off with the win the first week of the semester. The Bears hosted the Portland State Vikings at Butler Hancock last Thursday. This game was all about the offense for the Bears. Junior Tate Unruh helped bring the Bears to their big win. At one point, he had an 11-point scoring streak just in the first 7 minutes of the game. Unruh's first big point happened 4 minutes into the game, making his first 3-point jump shot. Less than 5 minutes after that, Unruh does it again, making his second 3 of the game. 30 seconds pass by, and man, Unruh just doesn't stop. He made 5 out of his 6 3-pointers in this game. Now that's impressive. By the time the second half started, this game was pretty much over. The Bears stayed on their toes, and when the buzzer finally rang, UNC took the game, winning 67-50.
Well, they welcomed the students back with a win, but could they go for 2? Let's find out. Sophomore Tim Huskisson took charge early in the half, hitting a 3 from downtown. That was one of 6 shots he made, good enough for the 14 points he had, putting him 3rd on the team for the night behind Tate Unruh, who had 21 points, and Derek Barden with 15. More on him later. Speaking of Derek Barden, he's kind of been incredible lately, and let me tell you, those 15 points did not go unnoticed. Why is that? Barden marked his 3rd double-double in 4 games. He was also a force on the glass with 15 rebounds, with Connor Osborne behind him with 8 rebounds and Paul Garnica with 7. UNC had no problem out-rebounding the Eagles, crashing the boards 47-29. The Bears also held the Eagles to a 37% field goal percentage. The Bears would go on to win it 72-56.
So the men's team is warming up. They made it 2, but can they go for the 3? As it turns out, 3 was the name of the game against Idaho State. Here's why. Tevin Sajhovic brought the Bears to a 5-point lead just in the first 2 minutes of the game. From then on, it was all about Paul Garnica. Garnica came into the game and instantly got hot, making 3-pointer after 3-pointer. He hit 6 of them in the game, finishing with 21 points. Also shooting the ball well was Tate Unruh. He had 15 points, all off of 3-pointers. And by the way, that marked the 7th time in his career that he made 5 shots beyond the arc. Tim Huskinson also had 15 points and added a big dunk off of an Unruh miss. Huskinson had 3 shots from downtown, adding to the 15 3-pointers overall. Bears were able to claw their way to a win of 78-63. After the record-breaking game, Coach B.J. Hill addressed the UNC media. Check out what he had to say.
You know, when you shoot the ball like that, it's gonna be hard for people to beat you. this team's been very capable of having a night like that. Just hasn't come together yet, but proud of them. I thought we took some big strides with being in the severe foul trouble that we were in the first half, and not playing exceptionally well at all. To be able to come back in the second half and ramp it up and put together a heck of a second half is a big step for this group.
Good stuff from Coach Hill. Coming up next on Bear Zone, it's the women's turn. Plus, we hit the mats for a wrestling update.
Come on back with us. You're watching Bear Zone on Channel 98.
Welcome back. So we've recapped how the men have done lately, so how about their lady counterparts? The women's team was for a while trading wins and losses, but recently hit their stride with a visit from Sacramento State. Deshara Strange went into the game looking for her 1,000th point of her college career. It did not take her very long for Strange to reach her milestone with this three-pointer. Stephanie Lee provided the only block of the game, which led to another three for the Bears. Lauren Osdike led both teams in scoring with 21 points. She puts a nice move on the D and finishes with an inside basket. Passing was a big part of the Bears' success Saturday. 4 people touched the ball on this coast-to-coast layup. The Bears went at halftime with a 46-28 lead. Strange did not slow down after reaching 1,000. She would add this three to her 18 points. The Bears dominated throughout and went on to win at 79-63. After the quality win against Sac State, how about a date with Idaho State? Oh yeah, in an arena where they've never beaten Idaho State, ever. That changed this time, finally, as UNC escaped Reed Gym with the 1-point win, 50-49. Deshara Strange had 14 points. Stephanie Lee had 13 and 8 boards off the bench and was aided by Hannah Thornton's 11 points off the bench. Lindsay Mallon added 10 rebounds as UNC built off a 31-25 halftime lead. The win moved the Bears to 7-3 in the conference and very much in the running to host their first Big Sky tournament.
What better way to recover from a hard match from a tough team than with a cakewalk against a team that hasn't won a game in 14 months? You heard that right. Weber State hasn't won since December 10th of 2012. Lauren Osdike was a rebound shy of a double-double and added 22 points. Deshara Strange helped with 11 points and 6 rebounds of her own. And off the bench, Stephanie Lee added 14 points of her own. The Bears shot 56% from the field compared to the Wildcats' 34%. 2 Wildcat starters were held scoreless, while all the offense came from Callie Matthews, who had 13 points, and Jalen Carpenter with 14. The win moved UNC to 8-3 in the Big Sky and solidly in second place behind Montana. More on that matchup later.
The wrestling team is 3 matches away from wrapping up their 2012-2013 schedule. After losing to Drexel, George Mason, and Northern Iowa in January, the Bears beat Colorado Mines at home on January 13th. Since then, though, they've dropped 3 straight to Colorado Mesa, Utah Valley, and Wyoming, including a rough 39-0 loss at Utah Valley. The Bears finish up with 3 more matches this Thursday night on the road against South Dakota State, this Saturday afternoon at North Dakota State, before they wrap up in 2 Sundays against the Falcons of Air Force in Colorado Springs. That match could prove to be tough, as Air Force consistently does well and has a couple of national championships to boot. We wish them the best of luck on their remaining matches.
Let's take a look at whom the Bears will be facing on their court for the next 2 weeks. Starting Thursday, the Bears face a very hard road trip that points northward. First on Thursday, the men take on Montana, who, by the way, lead the conference right now. That game can be heard on Greeley on 1310 KFKA radio and also seen on altitude. On Saturday, the Bears go to Moseman to take on Montana State, which is sure to be another tough test. They then return home for a couple of games in northern Arizona, Sacramento State, and North Dakota. 3 big chances for 3 very big wins.
How about the women? Can they keep their momentum rolling? Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. It looks a lot like the men's schedule. The team stays home this weekend to take on Montana in what will most likely be the game of the year so far in the Big Sky Conference. Tip-off for that one is at 7:05 p.m. On Saturday, the ladies play host to Montana State at Butler, so get out there and support your Bears for that one. By the way, they're 8-0 at home this year. Next week, the ladies head on the road again to face Northern Arizona, Sacramento State, and North Dakota State.
We're not done yet on Bear Zone. Coming up next, we'll have our good friend Michael Nowels in the studio to break down the basketball teams. And hey, it's never too early to talk football, right? Singing day is tomorrow, so what are the Bears' biggest needs? Come on back to find out. This is Bear Zone on Channel 98. Don't go far. Welcome back to Bear Zone. We're welcoming back into Bear Zone Mr. Michael Nowels of the UNC Mirror to break down the Bears and what they've been up to lately. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be back.
So to start off, the men's basketball team hasn't had quite as much success as the women's so far this season. But what are you hoping to see from the men for the rest of the season?
Really, at this point, their issue has been not being able to win really any games on the road. They're not going in there confident. They need to be the same team on the road that they are at home. And you're not going to win all your road games. You're not going to win all your home games. But they need to go in and continue to feel like they can win those road games. They've just been inconsistent out there when they're away from Butler Hancock. And they need to carry that confidence with them.
It seems like they haven't quite found a leader yet. I mean, you've got a couple of candidates in Tevin Sajhovic, Tate Unruh, but they don't really have that one go-to guy like a Devin Beitzel or.
Well, and you have some big guys on the team who have some experience. Derek Barden's new to the team, but he's obviously a very good player for the team. But being new, he can't really take that leadership role. A lot of times teams need their point guard to be that leader. Unruh plays off the ball a lot. You got Paul Garnica and you've got Tevin Sajhovic, who you mentioned, handling it a lot. Neither of them has really shown that consistency. They're both, Sajhovic especially, is a big scorer. Garnica is more of a ball handler, he can pass a little bit more. But they need someone to really take charge of this team. You're right, Ben.
So is it just kind of a collection of weapons without any organization?
Right, and they don't have that one transcendent player. They don't have that player who is the Devin Beitzel, as you mentioned. And when you are, they're 8th in conference right now, they're just not, something about the team isn't quite right. I think they're okay chemistry-wise. Their talent isn't as good as the rest of the Big Sky, I don't think, and they need that one piece that is over the top of everyone else.
Well, you mentioned that, on the road they don't play quite as well as they do at home. So this big road trip coming up for them, what exactly do you think that they need to do in order to have some success on this big road trip?
I think, like I said, they need to go in confident. They're playing at Montana State, two teams that have traditionally been really big powers in this conference. And Montana's still there. Montana State's not as good this year. So they've got a chance to win both of those games. I don't think they will win at Montana, but if they can go into Montana State and try to get some retribution for losing a heartbreaker, at home this year against the Bobcats, that would be huge. That's been part of their issue too, is not finishing games.
It was a tough game. Do you want to?
Well, now let's just switch over to the women's side.
Okay.
So, obviously the women, they've had a lot more success than the men this season.
Certainly.
So just like what I asked you about the men's, what are you hoping to see from the women's for the rest of the season?
Well, obviously this Thursday night is going to be a huge showdown
Huge game.
against Montana. Whether they win that game or they lose that game, they need to continue with a long-term focus. Say we need to finish well in conference, regardless of the result of that game. Yes, it is big, but they need to keep their nose to the grindstone. Much like the men's, they play better like any team. They're going to play better at home than on the road. They need to continue that fire at home and be able to pick up the road game here or there against a lesser opponent.
We talked about it a little bit earlier. They were, beginning of the season, they were kind of trading wins and losses, and traditionally this team has always been better in conference play. But what has been the switch? I know Deshara was kind of struggling for a while before she reached the 1,000-point barrier, and then once she got that kind of behind her, then it was off and running for her. But what do you think has kind of been the tipping point for this team that has made them really untouchable in the past 2 weeks?
I would say I think the bench has really stepped up. Some of the younger kids have been getting more used to being in the game. And then you see someone off the bench like Hannah Thornton. And we've had Deshara has reached that plateau, gone up past it. She doesn't have that mental block anymore. And she's able to just take that leadership role. There was a game earlier this year where she, as the starting point guard, didn't have any assists. She is a scoring point guard. She's a rebounding point guard. She's much more versatile than just a passer. But that's part of the game that needs to be there to to really get the team involved, get the team working around her, and I think she's been able to get that back into her game some.
I also wanted to ask you, Stephanie Lee has been huge. Sophomore sensation. Where did she come from, really?
I believe she's from Wyoming. But I think, it's once again that being comfortable out there on the floor, being comfortable with your teammates. The more you play with a particular group, the better you're going to be with that group. It just makes sense. You know their tendencies. You know where you're going to be. You know your role. And she's a big kid. She's able to finish at the rim and works hard down on the block. I think she's a hard worker, and I think that's really helped her kind of blossom as that player off the bench that the team needs.
Do the women host this year?
I think, that's dependent on Thursday night, isn't it? I think they'll win Thursday night, get real close, even up that tiebreaker, and it'll really come down the stretch. I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes, they will host.
That'd be great. All right, now just to switch gears, football.
Yes.
Never too early to talk about football.
The Super Bowl was 2 days ago.
So the Bears, we had much greater success this past season than we did the season before that. So, what do you think about how do you see that success translating into even next season?
I would say probably next season they went from 0 wins to 5 wins. I'll give them maybe 7 next year. I really love the culture that Coach Ernest Collins is bringing in here. He's not accepting anything less than their best, and I think that's very important. Some things that they do need to learn, though, is to beat teams that they have on the ropes. They had Northern Arizona on the ropes earlier this year. They lost some guys who were seniors this year, who were leaders on the team, particularly defensively and in the wide receiving core, that they're going to need to replace. New leaders coming up, and I think that they will be more successful next year.
Do you think Dom Gunn and Hervé Tonye gets a shot at the pros this year?
I would hope so. I think Dom Gunn, anytime you have that explosive returner, he's going to have a look. Tonye's got a nose for how to play. For the ball, he just understands the game cognitively very well. He understands schemes very well. And so we'll see. You don't see a lot of guys come from Northern Colorado or somewhere like here to go to the pros, but those are 2 guys who, if they get a shot, won't take it for granted.
Also, signing day. National Signing Day is tomorrow, Wednesday. What are the Bears' biggest needs, and do you think they'll be able to fill them?
I certainly hope they're able to fill them. Their biggest needs, they lost both starting safeties. They lost 2 starting linebackers. Dom Gunn in the return game is going to be hard to replace. And Chris Morris also out there on the wide receiver. He played some sparingly, but they do have Jace Davis out there. I think their biggest needs are filling those safety positions. Defensive backfield is key, and we'll really see what they get back. It depends on who's going to step up. I don't think the new freshmen are going to take those same roles as starters, but they need to continue to build the program upward as they have been the past 2 years.
But the freshmen from last year, the players that will be sophomores next year, any impact sophomores even?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Guys, it depends on who's going to show up in spring practice and who's going to switch to what position even sometimes. But we'll see what happens once spring practice starts.
The beauty of college football, you never have the same team year in and year out.
Right.
You have to finish this off, you have a special shout out.
I do. I would like to give a shout out to the Centennial Elementary. That's where I do my ESL practicum, and there was a girl who came up and recognized me from the show, and I was very surprised. But so, hi guys, Mrs. Howell's ESL class. Good to see you guys.
All right. Well, Mike, thanks for joining us. We are not quite done yet. Come on back with us for a look at who made this year's UNC Athletic Hall of Fame. This is Bear Zone on Channel 98.
Welcome back to Bear Zone. Throughout time, there are athletes, coaches, and directors who make a mark lasting further than their careers. The 2013 Hall of Fame class is in the books, and reporter Samantha Fox has the stories and accomplishments this class has to share.
The class of 2013 has officially been inducted. I'm not talking about graduation, I'm talking about the Athletic Hall of Fame. This year includes 7 individuals and 1 basketball team back from the 1960s. Among the individual inductees is former UNC head coach Kate Dalton. Dalton served as Bears head coach from 2000 until 2000.
I will do all I can as your assistant to help you do whatever it takes to get you where you can, if you feel like you can get a better job somewhere, I'll help you the best I can. But I will not, under any circumstance, leave UNC.
These are the words that Kay Dalton told his former boss, Joe Glenn, former UNC Bears coach, that he would not be joining with them. Dalton said the reason for joining was he had fallen in love with UNC and the Greeley community. Dalton was known as a very tough coach. However, this coach made a lot of impact on his previous players. One player in particular, former UNC quarterback Corte McGuffey, collected a binder full of letters from previous players. During the ceremony, McGuffey read one in particular from former safety Tony Lee.
You made it hard, but you did it with love, and you made sure that we leave the program as meant.
Another former Bear who made quite an impact since her time leaving UNC is UNC alum Ruth Nelson.
As a player, a coach, an innovator, and a mentor to many athletes at all levels.
Nelson earned 4 varsity letters in tennis and volleyball during her time as a Bear, and after graduation, she coached volleyball at 4 different universities during a span of 20 years. Reporting from the UC ballrooms, I'm Samantha Fox, Bear News.
The Hall of Fame has been around since 1994. 8 members represented the very first class, including Elsie Butler and John Hancock.
Hottest name on campus right now is none other than Derek Barden. We wanted to get to know him a little bit, so we sent Bear News reporter Jordan Doucette out to follow the Bears junior Jamster. Jordan?
We all get to know the name of the man behind the blue and gold. His name is Derek Barden, and he's doing big things in his junior season at UNC. Barden is averaging over 12 points and 8 rebounds per game, shooting a smooth 56% from the field. With a quick first step and a basketball IQ off the charts, Barden has earned every one of his 218 points this season. I spoke with Barden's teammate, redshirt junior big man Connor Osborne. I asked him to describe Barden in just one word.
He's an animal. He's an absolute beast.
So what makes Barden such a beast on the boards?
I think my coach at junior college told me you can be the best rebounder in the nation, so I started rebounding, so I just got good at it.
Barden's love for the game and for his teammates was made obvious when I asked him about his favorite part about being a Bear and a part of this team.
Just playing with the team, laughing with the coaches, off the court, on the court, just playing basketball.
Assistant coach Wright Martin had wonderful things to say about his star forward, calling him relentless. I asked him what made Barden different from any player he had coached in the past.
He uses his abilities better than anybody I've ever coached in that position. He just works hard every day, and he, being 6'3", he has to play that way. He has to play that way, or he'll get embarrassed. He'll get exposed on a nightly basis.
It's clear that Barden's physical and mental attributes are keys to his leadership role in this team. Standing just 6'3", Barden often guards players 6 to 8 inches taller than him. He's an animal. He's a beast. He's Derek Barden. Reporting from the Bears practice facility, I'm Jordan Doucette, Bear News.
Thank you, Jordan. He's certainly been fun to watch, and I personally can't wait to see what else he can do on the court.
Well, according to Nielsen, 100 million people watched the Baltimore Ravens beat the San Francisco 49ers last Sunday in Super Bowl 47. Hopefully they all stuck around for the third quarter, because it wasn't the electricity on the field that caught everyone's attention.
That's right. It was the lack of electricity off the field. Take a look at this. About halfway through the third quarter, half the overhead lights in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans just shut off completely. And the NFL suspended the game for half an hour, and the Ravens offense didn't see the field for almost 90 minutes. There's speculation that Beyonce's halftime show sucked the juice out of the stadium, but officials say that's not what happened.
There certainly was a lot of energy on the field, as the Niners scored 17 unanswered points, but ultimately fell by 3, 34-31. Joe Flacco would take home the MVP honors, but this game will be remembered as linebacker Ray Lewis's last one in a Ravens uniform.
When the lights go down in the city.
It's true. Good thing it wasn't sponsored by XL. And I think it's just because they had so much energy on the field, they needed to cut back on energy.
It's true. They needed to just, take a minute, breathe.
Yeah.
And honestly, that changed the game because the Niners ended up coming back and actually making it worth watching.
Yeah.
For a while there,
It was
I thought it was going to be a blowout and just terrible, like the BCS National Championship game. That was
a
bad.
great game.
It was. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another UNC Sports Wrap-Up. For Michael Nowels, Rachel Turnock, and everyone else here at the Bear News Studios, I'm Ben Warwick. Good night.